The 2026 NFL Scouting Combine is officially in the books. It was a great long weekend. Thank you to everybody who stopped by the stream. I was live on YouTube for the first 3 days and was working on compiling research and the players I wanted to be in this particular video. A lot more draft content to come on the channel, so make sure you're subscribed. I hope you guys are excited for that. This should be a really, really fun draft. As always, a lot of uncertainty, but there were players that I think boosted their stock at this year's Combine. Now, as I've said on the channel for years, the Combine is less about the athletic testing. It is important, but you're not really going to have someone that rises a ton, especially at the top of the board. More so, we already know these guys are athletic. Maybe there can be some more movement on day 2 and especially day 3. Teams want to take chances on higher athletes, but a lot of these guys can't really help themselves by participating, so I don't really blame players for opting out. But at the same time, when we see these unbelievably high RAS scores, or RAS numbers, relative athletic scores, we think some of these athletes are simply the best that we've ever seen, the best of all time. I will be referring to some of those numbers in this video, but when all of the players skip agility testing, it's not that crazy when the tightly wound height, weight, speed freak runs fast. We knew they were going to run fast. They're built to run fast. But can they change directions at an elite level? Nobody knows, because they don't do it, and they probably don't do it because they can't do it at a high level. So when we compare these scores that we're going to get to, well, what do we really find out from them? Not much that we didn't already know. But we're going to kick things off with quarterback Ty Simpson. Kind of an interesting one, because Ty Simpson did not actually work out in, the 40, didn't broad jump, didn't vertical, nothing, no 3-cone. However, what Ty Simpson did do was come in at a verified 6'1". Thought maybe he would be, is he 6 foot? Is he 6'1"? He was listed at 6'2", I think, at Alabama. And I said he's not 6'2", but comes in at 6'1". That's pretty good. 211 pounds. Ideally, he'd be a little bit heavier, right? And why is that a factor? It's about wear and tear. I mean, yes, there are so many rules in place now to protect these quarterbacks, but it's still important to be heavier. You don't get banged up as easily. And that's why it was so impressive when a guy like Fernando Mendoza comes in and is over 235 pounds. Just awesome to see from Mendoza, who I think people kind of think is a slighter, leaner, lankier type quarterback. But what was also especially impressive about Ty Simpson was doing the quarterbacky things. Ty Simpson looked, in my opinion, to be the best quarterback throwing the football in the on-field drills. He looked really, really good. He looked the part. And at the end of the day, playing quarterback means you need to be good at throwing the football. That's accuracy, that's timing, that's touch, placement, being able to drive the football. I thought Ty Simpson looked good. I didn't think he looked very slight compared to how I remember seeing him, at least early on in the season. He dealt with some injuries over the course of the year, but he came in, he looked pretty strong. He was throwing the football really, really well. And I'll tell you what, a lot of the quarterbacks threw the ball well. I'm not going to be talking about many of them in this video, but I thought Diego Pavia threw the ball well. I thought Luke Altmaier made some really good throws. Drew Aller, of course, had some nice throws. I thought Carson Beck threw the ball pretty well. Garrett Nussmeier had a good session. Cole Payton made some big-time throws down the field. The intermediate stuff was not maybe so good. But overall, this was a quarterback group that really threw the ball well in the on-field workouts. And that's not easy to do, considering that they're throwing to a lot of receivers for the first time. And the quarterback-receiver dynamic is so much about repetition and timing and knowing where a player is going to be out of his break and the timing at which you need to release the ball. And these quarterbacks, for the most part, looked really good. And we'll have to talk about one more quarterback, and it is the absolute athletic freak that is Taylon Green from Arkansas. Came in at 6'6", so just a little bit under 230 pounds. Really long arms, close to 35 inches, 10-inch hands. Absolute freak of nature, who then proceeded to break the quarterback vertical jump record at 43.5 inches. Absurd. The quarterback broad jump record at 11 feet 2 inches. And that's just a measure of explosiveness. People always say, why is jumping important at the combine? How useful of a skill is that if you're not going up to high point of football? It's a measure of explosiveness. That's why it's so important for some of these positions that require you to be explosive, which, oh, it's football. It's all of them. His 40 was one of the best that we've ever seen, a 4.36. And now a lot of people want Taylor Green to consider playing wide receiver or potentially even tight end, right? The size, the height, weight, speed package with Taylor Green is absolutely generational. It truly is. Here's the thing, is he really is super inconsistent throwing the ball. There's no discount that he's got a strong arm, but he doesn't even manage the pocket as well as Anthony Richardson did. That's why Taylor Green's not in the top 10 conversation. Richardson, in just 1 year of starting, actually looked pretty good at Florida. He looked like he navigated the pocket quite well. He was able to make some of these big-time throws. Taylor Green is far more raw and inconsistent than even Anthony Richardson was, who was far from a polished prospect coming out, and we've seen that now in the NFL, as he really didn't get a full chance to develop at all, and I recognize the reasons for that. But, man, if Taylor Green can put it all together, it's a rare athlete. If not, the unbelievable athleticism could lead you down, well, I mean, Terrell Pryor is the instant one you think of, but even, how about another Arkansas quarterback that was drafted in the first round as a receiver to the Jaguars, Matt Jones, back in the day? But I can understand letting Taylor Green develop as a quarterback, because if it works out, you spend maybe a late day 2 pick into day 3 somewhere on him. It's an unbelievable athlete where if you do somehow manage to get the 1% result out of him, he's going to be a superstar. Now, the odds of that happening, again, 1%, right? Probably not going to happen. But the athletic tools are unbelievable. And I think we do need to talk about Jeremiah Love. He came in as someone that I was consistently mocking recently at number 3 overall to the Arizona Cardinals. I think he is a bona fide top 10 pick almost no matter what. I think his floor is probably at 12 to the Cowboys. I'd be shocked if he got by them, but I'd also be surprised if he even got to them. Why is this so impressive? We knew Jeremiah Love was going to come out and run well. Well, he runs a 4.36 with a 1.55 10-yard split, and then he did all of the on-field workouts. Yes, he didn't do any agility testing. I'm sure the vert and broad jump would have been pretty good. He's a special athlete, but he does all of the running back drills, and then he does the receiver drills later as well, reportedly. This is an unbelievable type of player, and some team is going to get a potential superstar, but they're going to have to pay a high price to get him. He's going to end up being a top 10 pick. And this video is not just going to be who ran the fastest 40, but Mike Washington did at running back. And the height, weight, speed combination, explosiveness for Mike Washington is incredible. 6'1", 223 pounds, comes in, runs a 4.33 40, and this is a big running back. It didn't take him long to get going. Also a 1.51 10-yard split. That was the fastest among all running backs. And if you look at 10-yard splits all time, nobody is Chris Johnson. We know that. But a 1.51 10-yard split would be one of the fastest that we've ever seen. There's some great running backs in here as well. Shout out my guy, Darrington Evans. Among running backs all time, you can see that it comes in pretty high. Isaac Guerendo, Darren McFadden, another Arkansas running back that at least athletically compares very similarly to Mike Washington. They are similar heights and weights. Obviously, Washington is, maybe you even say significantly heavier. Very similar athletes. The tape for McFadden at Arkansas was absolutely incredible. Go watch his highlights. This is a true incredible running back prospect. If only he could have stayed healthy. But in terms of just the build and then the true overall athleticism, Isaac Guerendo and Mike Washington were very comparable. But Washington firmly finds himself in the RB2, 3, 4 conversation. I think he's going to end up going somewhere on day 2. He was really a standout to me when I went to watch Texas against Arkansas. I'm like, who is Mike Washington? I really didn't know much about him, and he looked incredible. That was the first time he came on my radar. The tape is quite good as well. He looks explosive. It matches. The combine results match. And I also want to talk about Seth McGowan. There are a number of running backs who tested really, really well. This isn't just who was the best in each individual way, but I've also been high on Seth McGowan throughout the process, so I think this is a good opportunity to mention him. 6 foot, 223. You like the big running backs because they have the size at least to be a 15 or 20 carry guy a game, like a true bell cow. And then when they add the athleticism, you go, this can be a legitimate starting running back. They're not only going to be relegated to a running back by committee role. In theory, this could be a workhorse. Could be. Now, so the size is very good. The hand size was interestingly small for McGowan, who is like a bigger running back overall. Comes out, tests really well. 4.49 in the 40. The 1.610 is really not too bad. I mean, the explosiveness was very good overall. 42.5 in the vert, a 10.11 broad jump. For perspective, if these numbers don't mean much to you, for a running back, anything under 4.5 is good overall. And especially if you're 220 plus pounds, it's great. A vertical jump, even close to 40 inches, is very good. Anything above that is incredible. A broad jump near 11 feet is incredible. But as you'd expect from a bigger back, a 4.5 20-yard shuttle is not incredible. You're probably looking for closer to a 4.1 or 4.2 in that range, if you can get it. And these, of course, are some of the fastest 20-yard shuttles that we've ever seen. But again, guys just don't do agility testing anymore. McGowan did. He did the 20-yard shuttle. Was nowhere close to some of the fastest times we've ever seen, of course. But nobody really does the agility testing, which is a 3-cone and the 20-yard shuttle. Chris Rainey was also a freak of nature. Those running backs at Florida were unreal. Chris Rainey, legit track guy. Jeff Demps, unbelievable track guy. And we've got to talk about some receivers. Brennan Thompson, Xavion Thomas ran really fast. Not really big surprises. But Jeff Caldwell is going to be the first name that we talk about. I mentioned him in my potential combine risers video, and I was blown away by the results. Comes in at 6'5", 216. Unbelievable for a receiver. I mentioned how we're going to talk about RAS score, relative athletic score. It's at MathBomb on Twitter. He's kind of the founder of this metric, and you can see where Mike Washington was. It's an unofficial 10, aka number 1 out of 2,100 running backs from 1987 to 2026. But again, he didn't do agility testing, so it is really an incomplete scorecard. But you can see like 99th percentile in the 40, 94th percentile weight, 85th percentile weight, 94th percentile height, 95th percentile vertical jump, 96th percentile broad jump. Well, Jeff Caldwell is right in that conversation as well. This would be the second out of 3,830 receivers from 1987 to 2026. Again, it's an incomplete scorecard, but you're looking at close to 99th percentile height, 91st percentile weight, 99th percentile vert, 99th percentile broad, 99th percentile 40, and with that, 90th percentile 10-yard split. And that was projected at 152. The actual 10 comes in at 148. He's doing this at 6'5", 216 pounds. Unbelievable, blazing fast 40. The explosiveness is truly on another level. 42-inch vert, 11.2 in the broad. Among receivers all time, how many are 6'5", 216 pounds? I'm going to say none of them. Thornton is 6'5". I don't think he's quite 216 pounds. He's 11 pounds lighter than that. Most of these receivers are all 6 foot or under. I think Thornton's a little bit taller than that. And like well under 200 pounds. Well under. The only comparable athlete here, from what I can see, is Brian Thomas Jr., who is 2 inches smaller and still significantly lighter. If you want to use the word significantly, maybe that's a bit of a stretch, but you take the unbelievable athletic testing that Brian Thomas was able to put up last year, and Jeff Caldwell kind of blew it away. I think Deion Burks is definitely worth mentioning as well. Comes in at 5'10", 180, so, and he runs a 4.3 flat, by the way, with a 10-yard split, slightly worse than Ted Caldwell. So we can pretty much say identical athletic testing between Deion Burks and Jeff Caldwell. One is 6'5", 216. One is 5'10", 180. It's a huge difference. Now, Deion Burks is going to end up being a starting slot receiver probably fairly soon. He's got overall good size, I would say, for a slot. He's built extremely strong and obviously is an incredible athlete. he was at Purdue, not really a great offensive environment, and then Oklahoma, and it really wasn't too great there either. The potential for Deion Burks is a starting slot, and he's going to be good value for a team somewhere on day 2. Great athlete. I think he solidified himself in that range. Might as well work down the list here. Talk about Zach Branch, former USC guy, transfers to Georgia. He's an interesting prospect because he's small. He's 5'9", 177. Not as small as, say, Xavier Worthy in terms of weight, or as small as a Tutu Atwell in totality. But he's interesting because he was really only used as kind of a gadget receiver at Georgia. He was catching really a majority of screen passes. Really was not running the full route tree. But the athleticism, I would say, suggests that he can. We'll see if that ends up coming to fruition. He's someone in the day 2 conversation pretty firmly. Maybe a team falls in love with him and takes him in the first if they're looking for his specialized skill set. But we knew he would come out and test well. Runs a 4.35 in the 40. Vertical jump at 38 inches. Even comes out, reps out 20 reps of 225 pounds in the bench. Very impressive for a small guy. Now, shorter arms will help with that. But in terms of his overall build, like 29 3/8 inch arms are not that short given that he's only 5'9". But they're not long. Again, it's relative, but the short arms in general does help. But I thought Zach Branch looked very, very good in the on-field workout. Was catching the ball outside of his frame. He looked very natural as a receiver, looked natural as a route runner. He's definitely somebody to watch. There's so many receivers here who tested unbelievably well. We can't talk about all of them. I think it's, a great workout from Bryce Lance, who backs up this type of speed on tape. Thought Eric Rivers had a great day. I thought Malik Benson and Chris Brazzell had a great day. Given his size, I'm a big fan of Deshaun Stribling down the board. I think he's a really, really good player with good size, good physicality, good ability to get down the field. Of course, he looked good. 4.36 40 was faster than I thought he would run. That's flying. But there are a lot of receivers who ran really, really well. Skylar Bell is another receiver in this day 2 conversation who I think has the tools to be a starting slot right away. Runs 4.4 flat in the 40, jumped 41 inches in the vert, 11.1 in the broad jump. He also looked very good and very natural in the receiver drills as well. I think the gauntlet was one that especially stands out. But I very much want to talk about Ted Hurst. He was someone that was put on to me by James Foster, who's been on the channel a little bit, No Flags Film. Check him out. Very good draft analyst. And I had not heard of Ted Hurst. Wasn't watching a ton of Georgia State. And then I saw some of the clips and was like, okay, we might have something here. He goes to the Senior Bowl. Very, very good at the Senior Bowl. And then comes to the Combine and has a phenomenal day. 4.42 in the 40. 1.55 10-yard split. Bigger bodied receiver, man. He's 6'4", 206 pounds. Not everybody can be, Jeff Caldwell, right? The famous Jeff Caldwell. 11.3 in the broad jump. And I think even more importantly than this, he looked awesome in the on-field workout as well. Some guys just look the part. I think the gauntlet is a great drill for seeing which receivers truly trust their hands and can stay in that line, run full speed. If you don't know the gauntlet drill, it's basically running from sideline to sideline, alternating catching the ball from different sides as you're sprinting, and trying to maintain that speed is not something that everybody does. And I think when players slow down and play slow through that drill, they don't really trust their hands, and they don't trust their hand-eye coordination and their feet to go full speed and to do everything that they need to do. And yes, the gauntlet is not necessarily what it's going to look like playing actual football. You're not catching 6 passes on a play. You're just not doing it. But I think it's the idea and what it illustrates, and Ted Hurst firmly looked the part. And I think this is going to be somebody that, again, can sneak into day 2 and be a really solid boundary or outside receiver option for a team. He is a fun player with tape to match. Even if you can't find the actual film, go watch his highlights or something. I'm sure they're fantastic because he's made some great contested catches. He can burn down the field. The 40-yard dash matches the tape for Ted Hurst. He's a fun player. And we've got to talk about Omar Cooper Jr. He's a first-round receiver, man. The tape's so good. He's so explosive. He's so great after the catch. He'll make the tough catches. He does the dirty work. And I'm going to start to really value who's coming out of Indiana, because I think they're the right type of guys. Mentally, I think they're team players. They're not divas. They're not afraid to do what needs to be done in order to win. Omar Cooper, man, we knew he had, everything you would want from the player in person. It's like, how fast is he really going to be? How explosive is he really going to be? Probably, touch 4.4, maybe he's a 4.5 guy. Runs 4.42, 1.55, 37-inch vertical jump. He really, I think, solidified himself in the day one conversation. He might even be the third receiver off the board. He might even be the second receiver off the board. And now, I'm not an incredible fan of the Jacoby Lane film. When watching the USC offense, I'm watching for Mekhi Lemon, and I've seen Jacoby Lane play and make some incredible catches. You do end up kind of seeing him make some crazy plays, of course. But when you go back, it's like, this is not a guy who separates at all. I mean, he just does not look fast, does not play fast, does not separate at all. And that's why he's had to make so many of these contested catches. And he's done a pretty good job, even though the drop rate is higher than what you would want. 6'4", 200 pounds, runs 4.47 in the 40. Yeah, the 10 was not great at a 1.58. 40-inch vert, 10.9 in the broad jump. And I really thought he looked good and natural in the on-field drills. And this was not something I was expecting to say, because I'm not a huge fan of him as a prospect. But he looked really good. Now, there are players that can look good at the combine, and then they're just not the same on the field. But maybe there is more to Jacoby Lane. Maybe there is. And last receiver we'll talk about, there are so many that just tested great. But I was really impressed consistently by Caden, I believe it's Wheatgen, I was told. Caden Wheatgen from Iowa. Not really a great passing offense, but based on the size, he's got a return background as well. This seems like somebody that could make a true instant impact from the slot. I was really impressed by him in the drills. It came out around a 4.47 in the 40 as well. This seems like instant impact slot. Can really make you miss in space. And I'm very interested to see where he goes, probably on day 3 in the draft. But I think he's someone that can make an instant impact as a returner, but also as a slot receiver. And he looked great in the on-field workouts. I was impressed, and I'm going to have to go back and watch more. Now, I hesitated for a minute to throw these next couple of tight ends in this video, because we knew they were good athletes. We knew they were good linear straight line athletes that were going to test really well, explosive. So what does them actually backing that up really do? Not a whole ton, because we already knew it. But Kenyon Sadiq was just on another level. I thought he had a chance to get maybe high 4.4. Thought he'd be somewhere around 4.5. Great time for a tight end. He runs 4.39 at 241 pounds. A 1.54 10-yard split. A vertical jump of 43.5 inches. For perspective, that would have tied the tight end record for highest vertical jump we've ever seen at the combine. Of course, from a tight end. But Eli Stowers, who we'll talk about next, had to go and break that with 45.5. Unbelievable. You look at the broad jump all time. There's Eli Stowers. There's Kenyon Sadiq. And this is, again, a good representation of explosiveness overall. You're seeing some good names here. David Njoku, George Kittle, Dustin Keller was a high pick. Virgil Green had his moments in his career. Mike Gesicki. You can see this year's tight end, Dynasty legend from my Wyoming Dynasty, JMG John Michael Gillenborg. Vernon Davis is not far behind. Noah Fant was a first-round pick. Jonnu Smith has had a really nice career. Like, these testing numbers are not for nothing. There is absolutely value to them. Sadiq also repped out 26 reps of 225 in the bench. Incredible day. We'll talk about Eli Stowers back-to-back because, I mean, he took what Sadiq did in the jumps and just set records. Again, insanity. Comes out, runs a 4.5 140, very impressive, 239 pounds. The problem with Eli Stowers is he's not really a tight end. He doesn't block at all. He's like a joker type of tight end receiver. If a team has a good plan for him, he could end up being a good player, but The receiving tight end archetype, it's tough to sometimes get you on the field because if you're not a truly good enough receiver, you're not going to make an impact as a receiver. And if you can't block and play tight end, you're just not going to see the field. It happens all the time. These guys come to the NFL with hype and they don't do anything because they can't block. You got to be able to block in the NFL. So I don't know what the future of Eli Stowers is going to be, but he's definitely a very explosive athlete with good size, good receiving ability. But is it good enough to where a team's going to want to play him essentially as a receiver or power slot? It's going to be interesting. And it doesn't seem like it, but hey, not all these tight ends are built the same. There's a big difference between 240-pound Sadiq and Eli Stowers and near 270-pound Sam Roosh from Stanford. 6'6", 270, runs a 4.7 flat in the 40 with a 1.6, 110, 38.5-inch vert. He did all the agility testing. He worked out on the field, looked very good, 25 reps at 225. This is a great workout. These numbers may not seem absolutely incredible, but he did this at 270 pounds. How impressive was this? Well, third out of over 1,350 tight ends from 87 to 2026. This is a 999 unofficial, and that's what German teams are going to be saying when they see this guy step on the field. He is a blocking tight end. He is a very good blocker with about 92nd percentile height for a tight end, 95th percentile weight, 98th percentile vertical, about 97th percentile broad jump, and then 80th percentile 40, 89th percentile 10-yard split. Only 4 tight ends decided to do the 3-cone. Sam Roosh was clearly the fastest at a 7.08. A little bit slower in the 20-yard shuttle compared to the other tight ends, but still right near the top. And if you look at the fastest 20-yard shuttles we've ever seen from a tight end, it's not near the top, but it's a very respectable number. And I think kind of the same deal for the 3-cone. So this is a big tight end that has a great history blocking and moves well, and I thought caught the football really well. Also comes from another tight end university, Iowa, Stanford, Notre Dame. Those are kind of the tight end schools. And in a class that's truly searching for good inline tight ends that can block and run and potentially be starters, this screams potential starter down the line. Could he be one of the first tight ends off the board? I think so. Among offensive linemen, of course, I've been banging the drum for Logan Jones pretty much all draft season. I do think he's going to end up being a starter. Looked good in the drills and ran really well. A 4.9 40 at 300 pounds. Of course, not all offensive linemen are built the same way, so there's going to be a big difference between a 6'3", 300-pound center and a 6'7", 330-pound tackle. And there are some that are even bigger than that in this class. But overall, thought Logan Jones looked really, really good. Tested quite well. I mean, the 1.75 10-yard split is what you're looking for among offensive linemen. Anything under 5 would be really, really good. He did the agility testing as well. Not all-time great numbers. In the 20-yard shuttle, you're looking for a bit faster than this to be truly elite, but this is a really good time. His 20-yard shuttle ends up being second among all offensive linemen this year. His 3-cone was second among all offensive linemen this year as well. Awesome day for someone that I think will be a future starter. We knew Monroe Freeling was going to test well, and he did. Shock. He's 6'7", 315 pounds, runs 4.93 in the 40, a 1.71 10-yard split. Vertical, very good. Broad jump at this size, very good. Here's the thing, is the more we get into it, he's going to potentially be the first or second offensive lineman off the board, I think. Maui Noah is a really good player. I think sticks at right tackle. He's in play to be the first lineman off the board, but he's a right tackle that may end up shifting inside the yard. Monroe Freeling is a left tackle. Spencer Fano is a right tackle that may shift inside the guard. He even did the center drills at the combine. We'll talk about him in a bit, but I don't know that he's going to get taken quite as high as Monroe Freeling. The athletic testing, awesome. The size, awesome. The arm length, nearly 35 inches. This is like if you built a Pro Bowl tackle in a lab. Needs some development for sure, but this is the guy to take if you're looking for a tackle in this year's draft. Or could it be down the board a little bit? Max Iheanacho from Arizona State, one of the fastest 40s. Also a 1.73 10-yard split. This is at 6'6", 321 pounds. This is still an offensive lineman that is not really even that old to playing football. I think only really started in high school, had not played football before high school. Goes to Arizona State, ends up becoming a starting right tackle for them. He's got elite size, 34-inch arms, is very solid. That's what you're looking for if you can get it. And he moves exceptionally well. He's explosive. The sky is the limit for Max Iheanacho. The athleticism tells you that, okay, maybe he could play left tackle, but he'll end up being a starting right tackle, I think. The athleticism is great. There's a lot to work with. If you can get him coached up, you're going to have a really, really good player. And then Spencer Fano looked incredible in the drills, and he should, because he's always been a great mover. The problem with Spencer Fano is he's not this powerful mauler. He kind of lacks play strength a little bit. And then he comes in with 32 and an 1/8 inch arms. And there were some weird measurements going on that, really deferred from what was seen at the Senior Bowl and a number of different places. But there's a thought Fano really is going to kick inside now. Like, could he even be a center, right? Again, I talked about him doing the center drills at the combine. And with his movement skills, I think his value is going to end up being versatility. Think of like an Elton Jenkins in a way, where if you need a tackle, he can do it. If you need a guard, he can do it. If you want to start him as a center, I'm sure he would probably be good in that capacity. Such a great mover. He tested so well. Again, looked so good in the drills. He's going to be a very, very good player, I'm sure. It's just, where are you going to play him? Emil Wagner tested really well, as did Caleb Lomu. Blake Miller had a really good day, but I want to talk about Keelan Rutledge. Keelan Rutledge looked fantastic in the on-field workouts. I thought he was twitchy. I thought he looked explosive, and again, very natural in all of these drills. A little bit of an older prospect. He's going to end up being a guard, I'm sure, but he's got very good size, runs 5.05 in the 40 with a 1.81 10-yard split. None of these results are particularly amazing. The 40 is good, or quite good, but man, he looked awesome in the on-field workouts. The tape, by all accounts, is apparently very good. I have not seen it, but excited to dive into it. I really do like watching offensive linemen, and I thought his movement skills in the drills looked awesome. So this is a player I'm excited for now. And again, you can mention even more guys, because there were a number of players that looked very good, but I'll talk about Emmanuel Pregnon, who I think has a chance to sneak into the first round in a world where teams really need help on the interior offensive line. Pregnon could end up being a solution for a number of different clubs. 5.21 in the 40, 1.81 or 1.82 10-yard split, but the vertical, 35 inches at 314 pounds, exceptional. Again, I thought he looked very good in the on-field workout. He's going to be an interesting player to watch. He and Chase Basantis, it's like these are going to be the next guards off the board after Venga Ioane. So it's like, is that going to sneak in round one? Is it the top of round two? That's probably the order. Venga Ioane, and then, who also looked very good, by the way. Not going to make this video because we already know really about him, but Pregnon and Basantis, are they going to sneak in round one? Are they top 40 players in the draft, top 40 picks? I think it's likely. I almost didn't include Zane Durant in the video because we knew he was going to test really well, but also only at 290 pounds. Ideally, that would be above 300. Just a little bit of a difference in play strength that you find between, 290 and 300 plus pounds. But he tested so insanely well that I think it's worth mentioning. Where if you're looking for like an interior penetrating 3 technique, like Zane Durant is going to be your guy down the board a little bit. Teams value interior defensive linemen that can rush the quarterback, and that's ideally what you're going to get with Zane Durant. Runs 4.75 in the 40 with a 1.66 10-yard split. At 290 pounds, these are unbelievable numbers. How unbelievable are they? Well, it's the 4th fastest 40 that we've ever seen from an interior defensive lineman. And Adetomiwa Adebawore did so at 282. Kalijah Cansey did so at 281. Aaron Donald, Hall of Famer, did so sub 290 as well. So, Zane Durant is in rare company here. If you look at the 10-yard split, obviously some were able to go about 1.6 or faster. But if you look at Zane Durant's 1.66, it's still one of the best that we've ever seen. Grayson Halton also continues a great offseason process. He's a little bit bigger than Zane Durant and tests similarly well. Very explosive also. Somebody's down to do the agility testing with the 3-cone and the 20-yard shuttle. Not that those were unbelievable marks, but he had a really, really good combine overall. 4.82 in the 40 with a 1.7 10-yard split. Very explosive. Had a great Senior Bowl again. He's in this day 2 conversation. And I think we have to talk about David Gusta as well from Kentucky. David Gusta, May Gusta, I don't know. He definitely liked these combine results because comes out at 308 pounds, runs sub 4.9 in the 40, sub 1.7 10-yard split. The vertical jump was not even too bad at 32 inches, 308 pounds. Very, very good. And then 37 reps of 225. And that is, of course, going to help by his, or that's going to be aided by his shorter arms, 31.1 inch arms, not like especially long. But man, really, really good results for him. Not a player I had watched, but maybe there's something there. And kind of a similar story with 295-pound Albert Regis from Texas A&M. Runs sub 4.9 in the 40, a 1.72 10-yard split. Very explosive. And again, did the 3-cone and the 20-yard shuttle, kind of a rarity nowadays. But the last interior defensive lineman I want to talk about is maybe the first one off the board. Caleb Banks, 6'6", 330, runs 5.04 in the 40 with a 1.76 10-yard split. The vertical's quite good. This is at close to 330 pounds, 35-inch arms. It is absolutely rare size and length and athleticism for Caleb Banks. He is very firmly in the DT1 conversation. It would not shock me if he were a top 15 or 20 pick. It would not shock me if he was the first defensive tackle off the board. This is one to watch. He only helped himself this week. Another guy I almost didn't mention because we know about Arvell Reese, right? I've hyped him up as one of my favorite players in this draft for months now. You know, like half a year almost now. And there's not really a ton to say. He comes in, runs a 4.4 640 over 240 pounds with a 1.58 10-yard split. This is the mark you are looking for among edge rushers. A 1.58 10-yard split or better, you're in rare company. And really, it ends up being some of the best edge players in the league. And we can't see all of the great names who are at this number. I believe Nick Bosa's right there as well, but Brian Burns, Josh Hines-Allen right there at 157. James Pierce had a great start, but here's Josh Sweat. Oh, there's Nick Bosa a little bit higher. I mean, Jermaine Johnson's a solid player. Dallas Turner was a high pick. Chop Robinson, high pick. Nolan Smith, high pick. Cliff Averill was a really good player. Montez Sweat has had his moments. Really, 1.58 or better, like Khalil Mack, that's what you're looking for, and he was there. Obviously, other things go into it. It's not just the 10-yard split. Height and weight are going to matter a lot, and of course, the film. That's why not every player that just hits 1.58 off the edge is going to be a good player. A lot of things go into it, but there's correlation. And Malachi Lawrence, man, we got to talk about him because we knew he was going to be a good athlete. Did we know he was going to be this good? 4.5 240 with a 1.59 10-yard split, 40-inch vertical, and a 10-10 broad jump. Now, of course, he didn't do any agility testing. So it's an incomplete card because is he really a 9'9"? Is he the 22nd most athletic defensive end or edge player we've seen over the last 40 years? 71st percentile height, who cares? 38th percentile weight. Now, that's because some defensive ends are as heavy as 300 pounds, right? So someone that's really a 3-4 outside linebacker at 253 is not going to look the same here in terms of weight. He's not Myles Garrett. But the vertical was 99th percentile, as was the broad, as was the 40, but didn't do any agility testing. And agility is really important for an edge because it's about bend, it's about cornering, it's about how you can maintain your speed, not just are you fast in a straight line. And that's why a guy like David Bailey's not going to make this video because we knew he was a good straight line, like height, weight, speed athlete, even though, you know, not that the weight's incredible, but a really twitched up, explosive athlete. But the problems that you saw on tape are still evident from the on-field workout where he's stiff. He's not a fluid, loose athlete. He was barely faster than Keldrick Falk, who's 280 pounds in some of these drills. And this is not a David Bailey hate video because he came out and had a great day. Ran 4.5 flat, a 1.6210. But you would want him to be a little bit more of a fluid, loose athlete at his height and weight. And it's just not fully there. But I was very impressed by Denied Dennis Sutton, which is a player I didn't really expect to like very much because I wasn't a huge fan of what I've seen of the film so far. And maybe there's more that I need to see from him, of course. But runs 4.63 at 6'6", 256, 1.6310, near 40-inch vert, near 11-foot broad jump. Does do the three cone with a nice 6'9", and that is one of the best three cones that we've seen. And this is another good indicator of who could potentially be a good defensive end. And I know it's going to seem crazy, but look at all of these names of either really good players in the league or potential even superstars in top picks. Cliff Averill. I mean, Vinny Curry was okay, but that's not really going to be someone I'd use to back up my argument. Look at this stretch. Joey Bosa, Max Crosby, Trayvon Walker, J.J. Watt, Harold Landry, Connor Barwin. Like, there are some guys who are not amazing in this range, but Melvin Ingram, Aiden Hutchinson, Bruce Irvin was a solid player. And these guys are all not built the same way. Sam Hubbard was a good player, even though he was not really an edge. Denied Dennis Sutton was incredibly impressive. There's a lot to work with here. I thought TJ Parker also did a really good job solidifying himself as a potential first-round pick. Ran 4.68 in the 40 with a 1.6, 110-yard split. The vert and broad were nothing, absolutely spectacular. They were just okay. But he's doing so at 6'4", 263 pounds. So he was one of the heavier, true edge rushers at this event. And he proved that he's quite a solid athlete. And I've talked about Trey Moore a little bit. Knew he was a good athlete. I didn't expect it to be quite this good. And at 243 pounds, ran 4.54 in the 40 with a 1.6, 10-yard split. Vert, again, near 40 inches with a 10-foot broad jump. It's a really good overall day for Trey Moore. He also decided to participate in the short shuttle. Banged out a 4.43. He was the only edge to participate in the 20-yard shuttle. But compared to the top times all time, you can see that, hey, a 4.43, it's not elite. It's not terrible. It's just all right. But again, you can see all these names here with the agility testing. There's some really good edge players in here. And it's a shame that, these guys don't participate anymore. I'd like to see some comparison. Because there's correlation when you're pulling out names like Joey Bosa and Trey Hendrickson. And these are not guys that all went high in the draft. Carl Lawson, Harold Landry, Connor Barwin. Again, we talked about some of these guys. Melvin Ingram, Jerry Hughes. There are some really good names in here. And not even just the top picks. Frank Clark. Obviously, you have your Crosby, Bosa, Hutchinson. Crosby was a pick down the board. It's you probably should have seen it coming from the 6'5", 250-pound edge rusher that had a 1.6, 10-yard split, very explosive, very fast, with elite agilities. He probably should have been picked earlier than the 4th round. Probably should have been, just because of the upside. That's how the draft works. But then Max Crosby falls to the 4th? Seems crazy. There were just such strong indicators that if you can develop him as a pass rusher a little bit, you've got a star. Another player I hesitated to put in this video just because we knew he was going to be athletic. But did we know he was going to be this athletic at 6'5", 244? Sonny Styles runs a 4.46 40 with a 1.56, 10-yard split, a 43.5-inch vertical jump, 11.2 in the broad. He did the agility testing, even though it wasn't elite. He did it. Incredible results here from Sonny Styles. I mean, this is, if you built a linebacker in a lab, similarly to what I said about Monroe Freeling, this is what you would come up with. Make him as tall as possible, 6'5". Make him as heavy as you can. For a modern-day linebacker, 244, that's pretty big. Make him as fast as you can. Well, he ran mid-4.4 in the 40 with a 1.56, 10-yard split. Make him explosive as you possibly can. I mean, this is unbelievable from Sonny Styles. He was the fastest linebacker. Nobody is even close to as heavy as he is. Caleb Elarmzor is heavy for a modern-day linebacker now, I guess, at 234 pounds. Not close. My guy, Anthony Hill, only one even remotely in the same ballpark at 238 pounds. Kyle Lewis is 220. Nnamdi Abiazor is under 230. Like, it's unreal how fast and explosive Sonny Styles is. He was tied for the fastest 10-yard split. He, of course, crushed the vertical. In terms of all-time vertical jumps among linebackers, that's number one by a full inch. Jamie Collins is an absolute alien. I didn't remember Bud Dupree being this insane, but look where Sonny Styles is tied for the fourth best broad jump ever at 11 feet 2 inches. And then you back that up with very good tape. He's going to be a top pick in this draft. I don't know if that means top 5 for sure, but the 5th pick is a decent option for the Giants with Sonny Styles. Okay, fine. I will talk about Longhorn legend Anthony Hill. Stop twisting my arm. Hook him. Anthony Hill, 6'2", about 240. Knew he was a good athlete. Just how good is he? Well, ran 4.51 in the 40 with a 1.58 10-yard split. Vertical jump 37 inches, 21 reps of 225 in the bench. And based on his skill set, Anthony Hill's an exciting player. Now, he's been such a good blitzer at times. There was a thought that maybe he could end up playing off the edge. And I haven't really heard that floated around too much. But with the size, with the arm length being in a decent spot, I mean, these are longer arms than Cassius Howell, significantly longer than Ruben Bain. I wonder if a team flirts with Anthony Hill as a rush 3-4 outside linebacker, but he's pretty good off the ball. Again, best coming downhill. We've talked about that a lot. He's a really, really good athlete. He's firmly in the round 1 conversation. I think he's going to end up as a top 50 pick. Justin Jefferson also had a really nice combine. Yes, he did so at a little bit of a lighter weight, 6 foot 223. But, I mean, he is fast on film, and he backed it up. 4.57 40 is fast. A 1.610 is explosive, as is the 38.5-inch vertical jump. He had a really nice day. I mean, someone that was quite similar in this regard was Kyle Lewis. But Jacob Rodriguez is the name we need to talk about next. The tape's good. You know, thought he was a good athlete, but just good. Not anything crazy. And obviously he's got a nose for the football, unlike almost anybody we've ever seen. So many forced fumbles and interceptions. Jacob Rodriguez was the ultimate playmaking linebacker for the Red Raiders this past season. And he just needed to come to the combine and test okay. He did better than okay. Jacob Rodriguez tested extraordinarily well. 4.57 in the 40 at 231 pounds. 1.610 with a 38.5-inch vert. He did the agility testing, and how good were his agilities? Well, his 3-cone was the fastest of any linebacker. His 20-yard shuttle was tied for the fastest of any linebacker. And if you look at some of the all-time great 3-cone times, he's not far off from making the top 20 or so. And if you look at the 20-yard shuttle, again, he's not far off making the list. So this is a way better athlete than what was anticipated to back up some pretty good film. Jacob Rodriguez is another one of these guys that could go off the board pretty early. I don't know if he sneaks into the first, but somewhere on day 2 and maybe early on day 2, Jacob Rodriguez could be a real impact player early. And I've been hyping up Jake Allday quite a bit. I think he's a really, really good player. I think he does compare favorably to Carson Schwezinger. 6'4.5", 240 pounds. This is a big linebacker. You know, linebackers over the past several years are getting lighter and lighter and lighter. Past 20 years, you're not seeing the 240, 250 plus pound linebackers very much anymore. But Allday is 240 pounds. And he moves like he's a lot less than that. This guy can really, really run. He's a phenomenal athlete. And I think he backed it up at the combine with a 4.62 40, a 1.610 yard split. Showed off the explosiveness with a 39-inch vertical jump. And then again, he did the agility testing. And it was good. 4.34 in the short shuttle. And then 7.02 in the 3-cone. How many linebackers are doing this near 240 pounds? Xavier Sori is 228. Jimmy Rolder from Michigan is 238. You got one guy there. Sonny Styles as well. Kyle Lewis is 220. Yeah, 220. Jacob Rodriguez, 230. You have a special type of a player with Jake Allday, I think, that a team's going to find as a steal at the back end of the first, maybe, but probably into day 2, which I think, based on the value he's going to add, quite good. Owen Heineke also had a very nice day as well, but is a bit of a weird one because he still could have eligibility and might just be back at Oklahoma next year. It's a weird situation. The first corner I want to talk about is Dalen Everett. You can see at the bottom there Charles Demings. Very interesting. But a lot of these guys are just height, weight, speed freaks. So it's not surprising that they come out and they run straight very, very fast and then skip the agility testing. But Dalen Everett from Georgia, he's got the pedigree. He's been on some winning teams. He's played quite well at times. And then I thought he was the best cornerback through the drills. I thought everything looked very fluid, very natural, very loose. The hips were not tight at all, which is something you're looking for on those turns. 6'1", close to 200 pounds, runs 4.38 in the 40 with a 1.54 10-yard split. Vertical jump near 38 inches. But the combination of speed and fluidity is going to make Dalen Everett a very enticing day 2 option at corner. D'Angelo Ponce did not run, but he did do the vertical, and it was 43.5 inches. I mean, what? If you look at some of the best verts in the history of the combine, look where that would be among cornerbacks. Top 5 all time. Unbelievable. And that's at 5'9". 182 pounds, was heavier than I thought he was going to end up being, but he bulked up a bit. Maybe that was why he didn't decide to run or do any of the agility testing. But he looked pretty good in the on-field workout. And, I mean, what are you doing with the vertical? Did he fake his wingspan just to get some extra inches on the vert? That you can do that, I guess. But, yeah, the arms are short. He's probably not going to be an outside corner in the league. The tape is unbelievable from D'Angelo Ponce. He's a simply incredible player that is not going to go as high as he probably should because of his size. It is rare height and weight for a first-round corner. I don't think we've ever seen that combination before, but the tape is really good. He looked great in the drills. Vertical jump, incredible. I think he solidified himself as a day 2 player. Brandon Cisse didn't run. I mean, we had some crazy verticals, man. Charles Demings was someone from Stephen F. Austin that tested crazy well. 4'4", 140, 155, 10-yard split with a 42-inch vert, 11-foot broad jump, but didn't do any of the agilities. And this is one of those guys that with the height, weight, speed combo, explosive in a straight line, but do they have the fluidity to play corner and do so at a high level? Those are the question marks. The third fastest 40 came from Chris Johnson. Chandler Rivers as well, I think, is a very impressive player. But Chris Johnson's tape is very, very good. There's some that think he's one of the best corners in this draft and a potential first-round pick. He ran 4.4 flat in the 40, 1.54 10, 38-inch vertical jump. Looked awesome in the on-field workout, as you'd expect. This is a really, really good prospect among corners, and he probably doesn't go in the first. Probably. But he very well could. Cornerback is such a valuable position, and there are some question marks among the corners in this year's class. Jermod McCoy, with the injury, not playing in all of 2025. He skipped the combine. We have Mansour Delane, that's a little bit undersized, and there are some questions about the athleticism. He didn't test. I'm sure he'll test great at his pro day. So you got some muddy waters. And maybe Chris Johnson could come out atop as one of the first couple of cornerbacks selected in this draft. You expect it to go Delane McCoy, but maybe it doesn't. And maybe Chris Johnson does get into the first round. Is he worthy of being drafted over Brandon Cisse or Colton Hood or Avion Terrell? These are some of the questions that teams are, of course, going to answer for us at the end of April. But Chris Johnson had a great day and I think solidified himself as a top 50 or so pick. What? Third Texas player of the video? Oh no, how come Malik Muhammad? It ran 4.42 in the 40 with a 1.510, or well, 1.51 10-yard split. Technically 1.510, I guess, is correct, but weird. If you look at cornerbacks in the 10-yard split, that was tied for number 1. Toriano Pride was number 1. He's just a small, undersized nickel that ran like 4.32. Malik Muhammad was obviously a bit slower than that, but the long speed is still good, and the explosiveness is great. 39-inch vert, 10-10 in the broad jump. The tape is good. I think he's probably going to end up getting pushed inside to the slot, but I thought he really solidified himself again as probably a day 2 player with really solid athleticism and size. It's hard to find this type of combination. And Avion Terrell did not run the 40, but did participate in the vert and the broad. Those were fine for him, and he looked really fluid and natural in the on-field workout as well. I think the tape's really good. He came in at 5'11", which I think was good for him to solidify that. 186 pounds. I still think he can hang on the boundary, even if he ends up finding a home in the nickel. I think he can be an outside corner, and I think he'd be a really good outside corner at that. I'm excited about him as a player. Obviously, AJ Terrell's brother. He could be really, really good, and a steal that maybe drops because he's not the biggest in the world. I didn't mention when talking about, the potential first-round corners with Chris Johnson, but yeah, Terrell is firmly in that first-round conversation, and we'll see where that ends up being. And then finishing up with the safeties, we got to talk about Dylan Thieneman from Oregon. Got ideal size. The tape is good, and especially got better over the latter half of the season. 4.35 in the 40, 1.52 10-yard split, 41-inch vert, 10.5 broad jump. I don't think he could have tested better than this. This was unbelievable for Dylan Thieneman. You knew he was a good athlete, but this was a very, very, very good day, and I think he's going to end up being a first-round pick. Even at a lesser valued position of safety, I think he's going to end up getting into the first round. Somebody maybe down the board a little bit more is Jalen Kilgore, but is a very good player and a really fun player. Whether he stays at safety or pushes to slot corner, it could be fun to find out. But I really like Jalen Kilgore. Ran 4.4 in the 40, 1.56 10-yard split, 37-inch vertical jump, 10-10 in the broad jump. Did do the short shuttle, but no 3-cone. What a day of testing. Someone that moves well for his size. I mean, 6'1", 210. This is a big defensive back, and he had a great day. As did Bud Clark from TCU, who continues a great offseason process. He's 6'1", 190 pounds, and then tested like this. Showed the tenacity, the ball skills, the playmaking ability at the Senior Bowl. 4.41 in the 40, 1.56 10, 38-inch vertical jump, and a 10.7 broad jump. And again, looked very good in the workout as well, which is the thing that I'm looking for a lot. It's the theme of this video. I say it a lot, especially for these positions where fluidity matters a lot. And that's like every position pretty much. You want to see the way these guys move, not just can they run fast, can they test well in that capacity, but how do they look actually moving in more of a football capacity. Well, Bud Clark looked very good, as did Traden Stukes, who was one of my favorite players in this draft. He's got great ball skills, great overall size. Seems like he got a little bit hurt following his 40-yard dash, and I don't remember seeing him out there in any of the drills, but ran 4.33 in the 40, 1.5 10-yard split with a 38-inch vert and a 10-10 broad jump. Could he be a safety? Yeah, maybe, but nickel corner, I think maybe you could even try him on the boundary with his skill set. He's a fun player, and I think he earned himself a lot of money. Maybe going to be a day 2 pick. Really, really good day. Let me know who I forgot in this video. Obviously, there are a lot more players that I wanted to mention, but we can't make this video an hour long talking about combine standouts when everybody came out and ran well, because guess what? The ones who opted out probably were not going to test that well. So the ones that did, well, we knew they were going to test well because they are testing. They didn't opt out. Thank you so much for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.